Hello everyone and welcome back to the good stuff. We are continuing the 1858 match between Adolf Anderssen and Paul Charles Morphy. This is game 7 and so far a lot has happened. Now in the previous game Anderssen was only down by 2 points, so if he won game 6 he would lower that to a 1-point margin. The problem is he just couldn't do it. Morphy allowed him chances, but he simply couldn't hit that final nail, so to say, and the opportunity went away, which is a pretty big deal because now he's still in the match. This is game 7 and he's down by 3 points, and that's a lot. You have to beat Morphy 3 times just to get even with him. Luckily for him, draws don't count, so you can get as many draws as you want as long as you win 3 games. You're gonna equalize at some point. So again, Anderssen in the game 7 gets the white pieces. I don't know why. For some reason in the olden days they would play like, okay, I have white, you have black, I have white, you have black, and then let's say after 6 games, then I will repeat. I will have black twice or white twice in this matter. And it's pretty great because Anderssen again goes for his famous A3 opening, and we discussed in the previous game that he was gonna go for this one 3 times, but let's see what he decided to change now. Or maybe he didn't decide to do anything. Maybe it was Morphy who deviated from a certain line. So okay, let's check it out. This is game 7 match of this century. So let's see what happened. So Anderssen again with the white pieces opens with A3. Sorry about that, and we're not gonna dwell too long on the opening because it's the exact same one from the previous video, so I suggest you check out that one if you haven't already, or better yet, check out the entire Morphy saga. The link is in the description below. So e5 by Morphy, we have c4, knight to f6, and now knight to c3. We have d5, captures, and now e3. So again, going for the reverse Sicilian with the white pieces. We have bishop to e6 by Morphy, going for his standard development, bishops to e6 and d6, and now knight to f3, attacking the e5 pawn. Bishop to d6, Morphy defends, and now bishop to e2. We have castles by Morphy, and d4 now by Anderssen. We said that 2 of the games will feature the d4 move, 1 of the games will feature castles instead of d4. But okay, Morphy repeats everything the same as in the previous game. Bishop knight captures on c3, b captures, and now e4. Chasing away the knight, knight to d2, and now f5. So everything exactly the same. We have f4, and now we reach the position where in the previous game Morphy decided to play, sort of in great style, and he bust open the position with the g5. But we mentioned that this is maybe a bit too risky. Maybe just e captures on f3 en passant, or queen to h4 gives black, a game without much issue. So here Morphy goes for queen to h4 check, and it is only now as of move 11 that we have a completely new game. So let's see how Anderssen defends. He defends exactly how we mentioned he should defend in the previous video. So g3, queen to h3, and now bishop to f1, chasing Morphy's queen back, queen to h6, and now c4. He just grabs more space in the center, and this is not a problem here. He's just going to play king to f2, develop the light square bishop somewhere, and continue his development. We have c6 by Morphy, and now c5, pushing this bishop even further back. We have bishop to c7. Now, yes, Morphy's b7 pawn is a backwards pawn, but that's a lot to... it's not really a problem. If you go, for example, rook to b1, we can just play b5. So it's never an issue. If captures en passant, then just captures, and black is perfectly fine here. So instead, after bishop to c7, we have bishop to c4. Anderssen it definitely makes a case for developing the bishop like this, because now if bishop captures, knight is going to capture on c4, and then the d6 square or the e5 square will be a very nice outpost for the knight at some point. But Morphy says, nope, if you want to trade, you're welcome to capture on e6. My queen is covering that very nicely. I'm just going to continue developing. We have castles by Anderssen, and now b5 by Morphy. Now he's saying, okay, move the bishop, then I'm going to play a5, and then at some point create a pass pawn with maybe a move like b4. So Anderssen captures on b6, en passant. We have a captures, and now queen to b3 with a double attack on the bishop here. Rook f to e8 defending, and now just bishop to b2. So Anderssen still trying to keep everything in the game, not trading too much. He wants to create some winning chances, of course, without giving Morphy too much, as he would really hate being down 4 points in the match already. So we have b5 by Morphy, forcing the trade here. We have bishop captures on e6, queen captures, and now Anderssen doesn't want to trade queens. Anderssen just plays queen to c2. Now, with continued pressure on the c6 pawn, probably if Anderssen wasn't such a, an attacking mad genius, he would play something like rook f to c1, say, okay, I'm going to continue putting pressure here, and you're welcome to trade here. I'm going to capture with my knight, and, if you're all that eager, of trading queens. So instead, after queen captures on e6, we have queen to c2. Anderssen says that his chances of winning are much greater, of course, if the queens stay on the board. And now Morphy plays queen to d5. You could also consider maybe a move like bishop d6. You could all go knight v6 to c4, also an idea. But Morphy decides for the nice centralizing queen to d5, and later on he might play something like c5 and so on. Put the rook on c8, all depending on what Anderssen plays. So here we have rook f to c1, now attacking the c6 pawn twice, and rook to a6. Morphy defends it like this, and this rook will now either come maybe to c8 or maybe double up on the a file. We have a4 by Anderssen, and now Morphy has to decide, does he want to double up the rooks on the a file, or maybe a move like b4 could be played. He does get the passed b pawn, and then let's say queen c4, you have to trade queens here, captures, attacks the passed pawn, now bishop d6, and we play this game, where black is definitely fine, but white also has a passed pawn, so it's hard to make what's what here. So instead, after a4, we have rook 8 to e8. Rook e to a8, doubling up on the a file, and now a captures on b5. We have queen captures on b5, and now queen to c4 with check. Now Anderssen trades queens like this. We have queen captures, knight captures, and Morphy now trades a rook on a1. Of course, you could capture with the rook, and then Morphy would trade the other rook as well, but Anderssen wants to keep as much material on the board as possible. So bishop captures on a1. And knight to f6 now. And now we have this endgame where the material is completely even. Both players have a dark square bishop, so completely even. Same number of pawns. So how do you continue here? Well, we have bishop to c3, and now comes rook to a2. So Morphy gets a very, very active position for his rook, and Anderssen has to deal with this, otherwise he will not be able to bring the king into the game. You don't really want to overextend with those pawns, and you kind of want to start bringing your king into the game. So bishop to d2, cut the rook off of the second rank, and now the king can come into the game. So okay, knight to d5 by Morphy, king to f1. We have bishop to d8, and now king to e1. We have bishop to e7, and now rook to b1, preparing to play something like rook to b7 or rook to b8, all depending on what Morphy plays. And it's not all that simple. Morphy plays h6, and now comes knight to e5, attacking the c6 pawn. But now everything Morphy did was preparation for this, so now just c5. We have captures. Pawns get traded on c5, and now comes rook to b5, attacking Morphy's bishop here. But there is one move that Morphy can play here that really makes a difference in the position. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find the only good move for Morphy while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding the only move that doesn't lose. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's knight captures on e3. And a special bonus for you, this move was praised by none other than Johann Jakob Blumenthal. If you found knight captures on e3, you were personally praised by Johann Jakob Blumenthal. And he said that this was very prettily played. I think this is the first time I've actually heard the word prettily used in a sentence, especially to describe a chess move. So, just prettily. But okay, the point is that now if you capture on c5, which of course you can, then, well, then comes what happened in the game. But if you go for bishop captures on e3, then we just play bishop captures on e3, and Morphy is up a pawn, and he's now, of course, better. So rook captures on c5 is the only way to continue. This is what Anderssen plays, and now comes knight to g2 with check. This is what Morphy had in mind, and now it doesn't really matter what Anderssen plays. If king to f1, Morphy just picks up the bishop, and the knight is defended. So king to f1 is out of the question. If you play king to d1, then e3 is coming, attacking the bishop, and once the bishop moves, or, you know, doesn't really matter what you do, e2 check, king to c1, we're gonna bring a queen into the game, and now Anderssen has to give back the material, and, you know, it's a pretty equal endgame. Not pretty, it's completely equal endgame. So after knight to g2 check, we have king to e2. Anderssen says, all right, this move is maybe the one that gives me the most chances, but it's pretty much the same. Morphy just plays e3. Now the bishop cannot move, and now knight to f3 by Anderssen. We have g6 by Morphy. Now the rook is attacking the f5 pawn, so g6, and now rook to d5. Adding another defender to the bishop here. And here Morphy makes a fatal mistake. Here you have to play very, very carefully. A move like king to f8 is possible, king to g7 is possible, e captures on d2 is possible. So all of these moves are possible, but the Morphy out of the nowhere, out of nowhere plays a move that loses the game on the spot. He plays king to f7, and there's something very, very special about this move. We could even make this a thumbnail, maybe. I'm still, you know, considering it. But this move loses the game, and you know, for a very specific reason. So feel free to pause the video here and finally win the game for Anderssen while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding this, well, quite an elusive idea. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's rook to a5. Rook to a5, such a great move, and it just shows you how tricky of a position is after Morphy plays king to f7. The main thing about king to f7 is that the king is now in reach of the knight. Knight to e5 will come with check. So now the problem is, if Morphy just, for example, captures here, it's not enough. We're going to capture with the knight, and after e captures, king captures, there's nothing you can do here. This is completely unplayable. The knight is trapped. There's no escaping for this knight, and white will simply, you know, bring the king in and pick up the knight. And even if it wasn't, it'd still be very hard, but now it's completely lost. So the only thing you could do after a move like rook to a5 is avoid the trade while still keeping an eye on the bishop here. But now comes knight to e5 with check, king to e6, and knight to c4. And now we defend the bishop again, but we also attack the rook. So we take away the a2 square, the b2 square, and now the rook is left only with the c2 square to defend this bishop. But this is insufficient because the knight also attacks the e3 pawn. So knight captures on e3, knight captures, king captures, and Anderssen is now up a full piece. So incredible as it is, but Morphy allowed this by playing king to f7, but Anderssen did not play it. I mean, who would expect Morphy to, you know, play the only move that loses the game, basically? I mean, you could play king g7, king to f8, you could play e captures on d2, like everything is perfectly fine. But Morphy finds the one move that loses the game, and I guess Anderssen simply wasn't expecting it. And, you know, it's really tough for Anderssen because Morphy will give you 1.5 chance every game to maybe beat him if you're playing really well. And here was one such chance that Anderssen did not take advantage of. So king to f7, Anderssen played rook to d6, just keeping an eye on the 6th rank, but now Morphy just goes back. King to g7, we have h4, and now e captures on d2. We have rook captures on d2, and now rook to a4. This could be the position that Anderssen saw, because if, well, for example, if Morphy traded here, captures, Morphy's knight is trapped here. But Morphy had all of this covered. He just played rook to a4, and now it's not a problem. Now king to f2, Anderssen attacks Morphy's knight, but now knight captures on f4. And if Anderssen maybe... Well, if he knew what Morphy was going to do with the knight, maybe he would have stopped there and searched a bit more for that rook to a5 move, because they're playing with unlimited time. And when I say unlimited, I mean limited only by how great of a gentleman you are. So, you know, take that while considering it's unlimited. But yeah, now knight captures on f4, we have g captures, rook captures, and now, yes, Anderssen is up a piece, but Morphy is up 2 pawns. The pawns are on the same side of the board. This is a draw, even with computer precision. There's no achieving anything here. So here we have rook to d4. Anderssen forces a rook trade. We have rook captures, not like that, but rook captures on d4, knight captures, and now king to f6. We have king to e3, we have g5, and now Anderssen has to keep one pawn in the game to ensure, well, he at least has winning chances at some point. Takes away this square from the king. We have king to e5, and now knight to f3 check, forcing the black king to go back. King f6, Anderssen repeated knight to d4, and it was in this position on move 50 that Anderssen and Morphy agreed to a draw. So after 6 incredibly fighting games, of which 5 ended well with a decisive result, game 7 ends in a draw. So Anderssen really achieved a lot in these 2 games, even though he lost one and drew one, but he had excellent winning chances against Morphy in the previous game, and here he was just outright winning. I mean, rook to a5 wins the game. So really tough for Anderssen. That a3 opening, it definitely has its merits, but you have to take advantage of that 1.5 time that Morphy will allow you to beat him when you play against him. So yeah, that's game 7 of this incredible match. Hope you guys enjoyed it and that you are having a great Saturday. I would like to thank Francis Ayer, Tom Derolo, Anthea in New Orleans, Pablo Mohan, and Richard Yarnell for contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Morphy saga until it ends. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your weekend.